It's extraordinary, really, for most of us, because we've all witnessed Mr. Chowdhury and his group for many years trying to provoke the British people. He's got on his record not only these huge swathes of people that he has helped to radicalise, but of course he's also created the English Defence League, an incredible double whammy achievement for one individual.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you are meeting me for the first time, my name is Clevy and it is so nice to meet you. You guys, we're back with another video and this is Douglas Murray on Channel 4 News.
Well, I'm joined now by the radical cleric Anjem Chowdhury, one of the founders of the controversial Islamist organisation Al-Muhajirun, and by Julie Siddiqui from the Islamic Society of Britain. Also joining us from Amsterdam is Douglas Murray from the Henry Jackson Society. And before we talk to all of them, we've unearthed footage tonight which shows one of the alleged terrorists, Michael Adebayo, at a protest by the now banned group Al-Muhajirun in 2007 outside Paddington Green Police Station in London. Anjem Chowdhury was also on the march. So one of the suspects attended your marches, listened to your lectures. You therefore helped radicalise him. Will you apologise for what's happened down in Woolwich?
I'm not going to apologise for exposing the crimes of the British government in Iraq or Afghanistan.
That's not the question I asked. You helped radicalise
let me answer the question
suspect.
in my way. Radicalisation is a stick which is used to beat the Muslim community. The fact is that there is conflation between exposing the British foreign policy, between things like rendition, Guantanamo Bay, killing innocent men, women and children, which I have no apology for whatsoever.
But
and we will continue to expose.
You helped radicalise the suspect, and now a British soldier is dead on the
allowing me
Woolwich
to answer the
Street.
question the way that I want.
Well, the question I'm asking is, you helped radicalise him
let me just tell you something.
because you were there with him on these marches. Will you apologise?
Radicalisation is calling for the Sharia nowadays. Radicalisation is exposing the British government. Radicalisation is commanding good, forbidding evil. We say, and we've always said, that we live here under a covenant of security. It's not allowed to target innocent people in return for our life and work being secure. And we've said that over the years.
Radicalisation
but the fact is the biggest radicalising factor is the British government and their foreign policy.
But radicalisation is also about justifying violence, isn't it?
No, it's not.
Will you take some responsibility for what has happened on the streets of Woolwich?
Pejorative like radicalisation, fundamentalism, extremism is used by the British government to silence a section of the community which expose their own policies. There's something called Islam. Islam calls for the Sharia. Islam says that people have a right to defend themselves. And that's what we propagate. We don't propagate something outside of Islam.
Douglas Murray, how should the government respond to the kind of things that Anjem Chowdhury is saying there?
Well, it's very difficult in a way for the government because Al-Muhajirun and its offshoots have already been banned. Its offshoots have been banned for many years. And this group, of course, and its activities predate 9/11. And I think it's very important to remember that Amer Mirza was convicted, first a member of Al-Muhajirun, was convicted in 1998 for his attempt to firebomb a British Army barracks. There have been a spate of attacks. We've worked out that about 20% actually of convictions, of Al-Qaeda-related terror convictions in this country, have a linkage with Al-Muhajirun and with Mr. Chowdhury.
OK, Douglas, let me put that point direct to Anjem Chowdhury. I mean, that's quite an astonishing figure. I mean, you take some responsibility for that, don't you?
No, not at all. I think that you need to make a distinction between legitimate political and ideological struggle, which we have been doing for about 15 or 20 years in this country. You know, I've never been arrested. I've never been arrested for organising any terrorist activities, any kind of military bases or anything like that. And the reality is that people we come across, we have a huge number of demonstrations and processions and activities. And of course, we come across many people. People may leave our own activities and do things outside of that. And we're not going to be accountable for that.
But there is nothing legitimate about radicalising Richard Dart, who plotted to bomb Wootton Bassett. How many jihadists have you? How many jihadists have you influenced? How many people have they killed?
Richard Dart was in prison for 9 or 10 months. He faced a choice between having about 20 years in prison or taking a plea bargain. He made a couple of phone calls. He typed a few things on a computer.
Wait.
The fact that he was forced to plead guilty doesn't mean that he was planning anything at all.
In court, you radicalised him. It was said in court that you radicalised Richard Dart.
Please.
How many jihadists would you say you radicalised?
For the British government and their own media wing, radicalisation is calling for the Sharia. Radicalisation is exposing their murderers in Muslim countries. Radicalisation is saying that we want the Sharia. The fact is that, you know, these kind of terms are used to demonise the Muslims and to justify your foreign policy.
OK, Julie Siddiqui, let me bring you in. What's your response to what you've heard there?
Well, I just want to first of all give my condolences and thoughts to the family, friends and the people of Woolwich, really, the family and friends of Lee Rigby. Of course, today we're seeing the face to a name, really, and it makes it even more horrific and very, very sad what we saw in our streets unfolding yesterday. I think really all of us, any decent people in this country, will realise that this kind of rhetoric has no place whatsoever in this country. What we saw yesterday and what we're seeing with the likes of the English Defence League, for me, in both ends, they are trying to divide this country in a way that we won't stand for. The good hundreds and thousands of good people in this country, Al-Mahadroon and any of his offshoots have always only ever had tens of people, not hundreds, not thousands. So really representing a very, very small number of people in this country.
And you mentioned the EDL there. I mean, there have been some mosques targeted by the far right. Do you think mainstream Muslims are fearful today?
I mean, I think Muslims do feel vulnerable today, and some mosques were attacked yesterday, and we're hearing all sorts of other stories coming through. And of course, we have to all remain calm and measured to make sure that these things don't escalate any further, because that's obviously something that we don't want to see in this country either. So I think Muslims do feel vulnerable today, but I think the overwhelming majority of Muslim organisations and individuals have come out in full force today to absolutely condemn and say that this kind of action has no place whatsoever in this country.
Douglas Murray, David Cameron said that these attacks will bring people together. Are we not terror-struck as a country?
No, I don't think so at all. I'm not terror-struck. You're not terror-struck. Almost none of the British nation, I should think, is terror-struck. What we are is united in disgust, Muslims and non-Muslims. It's extraordinary, really, for most of us, because we've all witnessed Mr. Chowdhury and his group for many years trying to provoke the British people. He's got on his record not only these huge swathes of people that he has helped to radicalise, but of course he's also created the English Defence League, an incredible double whammy achievement for one individual. But one of the things that's most interesting in this is the continual provocation of Mr. Chowdhury does not persuade and will not persuade most of us to believe that most Muslims are like Mr. Chowdhury. They are not. Most Muslims in this country are utterly disgusted by him and his actions. And the important thing to remember for non-Muslims is not to be provoked by Mr. Chowdhury, not even when he says, as he did earlier this year, that his £25,000 a year that he gets in benefits from the British state is what he calls Jihad seekers' allowance. If I may make one point.
Okay.
Mr. Chowdhury was almost certainly better paid than drummer Rigby. That fact is something that we should mull on and, I would suggest, sort out swiftly.
Anjem Chowdhury, I mean, these suspects viewed the soldiers generally, as legitimate targets. Do you?
Well, let me just say, first of all, that Douglas Murray...
Wait a second.
Douglas Murray is talking rubbish. I'm not getting 25k a year.
We'll leave
I'm not on JSA, for your information. Check your facts. And she's wrong as well. We don't have 10 or 100 members. We have many.
Right.
But the point is, soldiers who are fighting in Afghanistan, obviously the people have the right to defend themselves. What we say in Britain is that we have a covenant of security. In return for our life and wealth being protected, it is not allowed for Muslims to target the life and the wealth of the people with whom we live. But I tell you something. The people who are oppressing the Muslims is the British government. The people who are banning ideological and political struggle are the British government. They don't allow people to express themselves.
You've had your time. You've had your say. Thank you very much. We have to move on now.
Ooh, what an interesting clip. Now, of course, when I pick up my pen, best believe I have gotten a point I really want us to talk about. And in the course of talking about what is going on right now, the Hamas, the Israel war, I've come across this question over and over again. And the last video, I can't remember with who. Is it with Ben Shapiro? Right? And someone asked him a question. He said, doesn't Hamas have the right to defend themselves? And hearing Anjem Chowdhury say this again, he said that line. He said, what is practiced in Islam and what he teaches is that they have the right to defend themselves. Is that sinking in for anyone? Right? Because he asked that question. He kept on telling Ben in that video, he kept on telling Ben hasn't answered that question. Ben hasn't. And Ben asked him, should Hamas surrender? Should they surrender? And he's like, he can't answer that. And to Ben and most people, to Douglas, to everyone I've listened to, Bill Maher, almost everyone I've listened to, and everyone is saying that they shouldn't attack Israel again. that they shouldn't attack. They should be dissolved. Peace should come back and reign. Honestly. Because Anjem just said this. He's like, in Islam, they are taught that they have the right to defend themselves. And I asked this question over, and I'm like, when will it end? Because when this one attacks, this one defend, when this one defend, this one attacks, and I'm like, there is a lot of attack and defending going on. When will we call a ceasefire? When will we like, okay, let it end, let it stop. Let it stop, let it end. Because at this point is a lot. It's bringing up a lot of chaos. The attack and defending is going on here. We're having so many college protests, campus protests. It's a lot. It's a lot going on. It's a lot going on. When will it end? When will it stop? Attack and defend, attack and defend, attack. And this one's now I'm even getting to understand that it is in their religion that they have a right to defend themselves. And I'm like, there you go. For every time this one attack, be sure that this one will always defend. Do you understand? So I'm like, can it just end? Can it just stop? Because every day I feel for the lives of the innocent, the ones who have been caught in all of this. Like, what are your own opinions, you guys? What do you think about this? As usual, the video starts from the comment section. And so I'll see you there.